Hey guys, so today I wanted to do something talking about just bringing to light some of the problems that a lot of people in the transgender community go through. And hopefully, this video will help people who aren't aware of how serious the problems are. Hopefully, it helps them figure out ways to help those in need better and also understand why these are so serious. The first thing I want to talk about is medical situations and doctors and care like that. So, first thing to go into, about 19% of transgendered individuals have reported that they've been refused care outright because they were transgender. Um, Also, in a couple surveys that were done recently, back in January, there was a lot of transgendered individuals saying that they were postponing medical care even though they were sick or they were injured due to the discrimination or the disrespect that they receive. Um, Another thing is the lack of knowledge that their medical providers had when treating them and talking about things due to their transitioning. So, I can say for me, I ended up having to change doctors, and thankfully, the doctors that I go to in general for my my HRT and everything like that, they do a lot of medical work, so I can get that service there. It's out of the way from where I live right now, and it's not preferable. Obviously, I would like to go to someplace closer to me, but at the same time, I am fortunate enough to have that environment for myself because a lot of people don't have that when they're transitioning and they end up having a lot harder of a time getting help that they need or anything like that. So, just because some of these things haven't applied to me or haven't applied to me as seriously or impacted me as seriously as other people, it does not change how serious that this is for the community as a whole and equality as a whole for transgendered individuals not being treated with the same respect that they should be. Because, and I'm not saying like special privileges or anything like that. Like, we don't want a gold seat in all of our cars. We don't looking to be treated any better than cisgendered people. We're just looking to be treated the same. We're looking to be able to go out and get medical help at a doctor that is close to us, where the doctor is a doctor that a cisgendered person could go to, and that doctor would be completely fine. But because so many doctors and so many people are ignorant towards people who are transitioning, it ends up providing a very bad experience, and that forces a lot of us to either forego healthcare or put off healthcare, and it's just not a good situation at all. Um, so for some places, even though there are easier ways to get in for like medical help and everything like that, there's so much less surgeries going on to help transitioning people. Um, and a lot of that is due towards, again, ignorance and just the amount of money it costs to do the things that various transitioning people would like to do. Um, Certain people have FFS, which is facial feminization surgery, and obviously this would be if you're trying to look more feminine, but that surgery can be one procedure, it could be several procedures. You could go in for FFS and have 4 or 5 procedures done to you. And SRS, which is breast augmentation, and that allows, or that not allows, but that surgery can give you a larger bust and make you feel more comfortable if you feel like you would like that larger bust. And then obviously lower SRS, which a lot of people consider is the only surgery for being transgender, and it's not. That's the thing, is all of these all of these surgeries and all of these things that we go through, it's for us. And it's just really hard when we're trying to do all of these things to just feel comfortable in our own world and in our life. And it sucks because while these things are hard, it's made worse by the fact that all of these like issues, these medical issues, such as being refused treatment outright, or being like feeling discriminated against by doctors, or harassment, it's not okay. In one of these surveys done recently, about 28% of the survey takers actually responded to having harassment in their medical setting, and that's both like physical and mental harassment. So it's really disgusting that a lot of these things are going on in the world, and it's really unfortunate that there's just not enough awareness and not enough discussion towards it. And a lot of people like to shy away from things that are bad and focus on just other things, or focus on what maybe gains more attention. But that's the thing, is that's why a lot of people feel marginalized and they don't feel like they're actually human beings. And that's something that everyone who's alive has the right to feel like is a human being. Also, and this one's kind of a little bit more obvious after some of these things that I've listed, with discrimination, harassment, refusal of services, the difficulty it is to receive certain services. About 41% of transgendered individuals who are taking this survey have said that they have attempted suicide at least once. And when the general population percentage for suicide is 1.6%, you've got to think about like how this is. And unfortunately for people who are ignorant, they look at this as they're like, oh, well, because you're transgender, you're miserable, or you want to go back because you're not happy. No, a lot of times they just are so depressed because they've either been kicked out of their homes, they currently are homeless, they can't come out to anyone because they feel like everyone will judge them and discriminate against them because of all of these facts that already exist in the world towards discrimination towards transgendered people. They're afraid of losing medical services or having difficulty finding medical services. There's so much extra work that goes into it that you have to go around if you're just trying to feel comfortable as who you are. And people often misinterpret the fact that you're suicidal because you're depressed. I felt like I could never be happy. I felt like everything I did in my life, I could never be happy, and I needed to accept that. And that's such a terrible way to think about living your life and growing up. And for anyone who's young, thinking that, you know, somebody in like their teens, like for anyone who's a teenager thinking that, oh, I'm never going to be happy in life, I'm always going to be this upset, I'm always going to be miserable, this is how life is, that's really horrible. And coming out and expressing myself, I feel loads off of my mind. I feel so much happier. But there's also other things that I have to be conscious of because of people's ignorance and their lack of understanding towards transgender individuals and the community as a whole, of like whether you're lesbian, you're gay, you're bi, you're queer, anything like that. As far as getting kicked out of your home, if you're transgender, that happens to about 1 out of 5 transgender people. that's really hard. And it's even harder when they're trying to find a new house and they're trying to buy a house, because sometimes they get discriminated against that. And they're not allowed to even purchase a house because, or an apartment, because they're transgender. So it's really, really hard. And while the government's been doing a few things here and there, it often is more harmful than helpful. A lot of times when they're trying to do things as far as placements and everything like that with transgendered individuals, it's done, like, they have assisted living quarters, but that's usually set up for what they define as the reproductive organs that you have. So if you have a penis, regardless of how you see yourself, regardless of how far into HRT you are, if you have a penis, there's a lot of times that you're placed into a male household. And I mean, you can just imagine how uncomfortable that is for some people, being categorized with men, even though they have gone through HRT or they're going through HRT and they do not identify as a man. And that's just a really uncomfortable situation. And the same thing for trans men, where they're placed in a house full of women and they're being called a girl and a woman, despite them knowing that they're not a woman, and how rude that can come across. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't realize that because they're not in that position themselves, and they don't understand all the nuances and how much people take things for granted. You're living your whole life knowing who you are, how you are. You associate with the gender that you were assigned with at birth, whether it's male or woman. You associate with that gender. And so you are often taking for granted what that really means to somebody. What that means to just be called and treated the way that you feel like you are as a person, and being treated completely different. And that's very difficult to go through, and that's very difficult to deal with. And it's really unfortunate that so many negative things are going on in the world towards the equality of transgendered individuals. And again, I say this in a lot of my videos, I feel bad that it's not just transgendered individuals, and like I would love to be like, oh yeah, no, everyone else is perfectly fine and everyone's treated with respect and equality, and that's not the case. Unfortunately, there's so much discrimination that goes on, and it's so bad for people in general. It's hard for even cisgendered women, much less being a trans woman. Like, I'll talk about some of the stuff that I go through with some of my friends, and they're like, oh, that's as hard as just being a woman in general. And I was like, oh yeah, man, that's great, because that means it doesn't, like, it's not even better if you're cisgender, and that's really unfortunate. And I really wanted to do this video today because I really wanted to just do a little bit of work into understanding, or putting into work, as far as getting some information towards you guys so you can understand a little bit better about just a lot of the discrimination that goes on towards transgender people, and so you can do your part to try to help make it better, that you can reach out to these people that you know in your life or that you see and try to help them with what they need. Obviously, I'm not saying run up to a transgender person and give them like $40,000 for SRS. I mean, we would love that. I would love that. But that's not likely to happen. And and it's going to be a lot of work to try to build equality for everyone, but I'm hoping that this video can start getting the topic on cisgender people's minds, and people can start working together and making a positive change for transgendered individuals all around the world, but also just kind of help you guys understand a couple things as far as like, don't, if you're housing a trans woman, don't put her with the boys, for God's sakes. Like, that's so awkward. I mean, sometimes you might kind of get along with it, where they might like roll with it for a little bit, but that's just uncomfortable for so many reasons. There aren't that many girls that just want to walk around with a bunch of guys like staring at them, staring at their breasts or anything like that. Like, it's just an uncomfortable situation. And it's the same thing for, well, I don't want to say like an exact, like a situation, just because I can't speak from a man's point of view, because I've never been a boy, and I've never really had that way of thinking. But I would imagine that there's very similar things if you're a trans man and you're going to be housed with a bunch of girls. I can only imagine that that's weird in and of itself, and it's probably just super uncomfortable for you to just be categorized in a group that you don't really feel like you belong in, and you know that you are a boy, and to be lumped in with a bunch of girls is just really hard. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this, and I really hope that there's so much that I want to thank you guys so much for watching this, and I hope that there is a lot that you guys can hold on to from this video towards some of the issues and some of the public discrimination that happens towards transgendered people. Also, just trying to make the world a better place for just like anti-discrimination in general, not just transgendered equality, but equality for everyone. And I think eventually we can get there if we just all work together in that vein. I think that a large part of everyone is they want to be treated like a human being, and they want to feel like that they have the same right to live as anyone else. And it's easy to think about it in a closeted situation and say, oh, of course I have a right to live. But when so many people are treating you like you don't, it gets very hard and it gets very difficult. So just a couple things, just a couple closing thoughts to kind of sit with you guys. I hope you guys have a great day, and I love you guys so much. Bye bye.